Welcome back, everyone, to the Men on a Mission podcast. I'm your host, Brad Richard, and shortly we will be starting our next episode. We will be providing you tools, resources, and information that you can use to make your life just a little bit better. But before we do that, let's honor our country, and then we'll begin the podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the Men on a Mission podcast. I'm your host, Brad Richard, and tonight is episode 58, episode 58. We have a couple of guests on with us tonight, Dave Thomason and Lisa Herterich. And she may correct me on that, but that is her last name.
You're good.
And she is a registered nurse. And tell me what MSN stands for.
MSN means I have a Master of Science in Nursing.
Master of Science in Nursing and an RN. Okay.
Yes.
So that's the titles. Now, Dave has a title. He is a retired Marine.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm a retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant.
Awesome. Thank you for your service, brother. We appreciate it.
Lisa served too. She was in the Army. She was a nurse in the Army.
Oh, terrific.
Yes.
I love to have veterans on. It's always easier with my listeners. They love to hear from veterans. So tonight, Dave and Lisa are with I knew
Anam Kara.
Say that again.
Anam Kara.
Anam Kara. Anam Kara is the name of the company, and they are going to talk to us tonight about microcurrent neurofeedback. And I want to let the listeners know up front a little bit about it. Microcurrent neurofeedback produces a measurable change in the brain waves without conscious effort from the individual receiving the feedback. The result is a changed brainwave state and much greater ability for the brain and nervous system to regulate itself. Some of the conditions that microcurrent neurofeedback can help with would be anxiety, depression, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, concussions, addictions, ADD, ADHD. I may need a treatment for that one. Autism, fibromyalgia, stroke, and many, many more conditions that this technology or this science can help with. So what we're going to do is, Lisa, we're going to start with you and tell the listeners a little bit about your background, a little bit about who you are and what brought you to this point. And then we'll move to David and get his story as well in the first segment. And then we'll find out more about your company and the microcurrent process in the second segment. So the floor is yours, Lisa. Can't wait to hear your story.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. A little bit about me, how I kind of got into this. I am a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for a long time. I started my career in the Army. I was on active duty from 1986 to 92. And that's where I, learned a lot, learned how to be a nurse, was in the Army. And I then went back to school and got a master's degree in nursing, and I specialized in nursing education. And this is kind of how I got into IASIS, is in the course of teaching in a baccalaureate program. I taught at the University of Texas at Tyler. I had a lot of veterans, or I had some veterans as students in the nursing program. And some of them were deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and some did struggle in the program. And much of it was due to some diagnosed and undiagnosed PTSD. And I remember one student who was failing miserably in one of my courses, and what I usually do is, if they're failing, I ask them to come speak with me so we can figure out what's going on. And I sat and I talked to him, and he basically said to me that everything that had happened, he couldn't concentrate, he couldn't cope, he had nightmares, he couldn't study. And I did my best to get him some help. And through this, and this is kind of a little off topic, but I started facilitating a course called Reboot, which addressed spiritual injury and combat veterans. It was a free program to veterans, and I helped facilitate that. And so I started working with veterans, and I started seeing more and more, and I had a heart for veterans because I'm a vet myself, and I understand the military culture. I've been there, I've lived it. So I started getting interested in working with veterans through Reboot. And while I was at UT Tyler, they had a meeting for someone who did the microcurrent neurofeedback, looking for research partners. And so I went along to the meeting, just wanted to hear about it. And Dave was at the meeting. That's where I met Dave. And I started listening to this, and I was just absolutely astounded by the claims that were being made. And I asked Dave, I had a couple of vets that I was working with, I asked him to come over to Tyler or to Longview, and would he mind, just trying it on a couple of them. And the results after just a couple of sessions were astounding. Had one young man that came in with a hoodie over his head, wouldn't look at anybody, very kind of withdrawn and closed. When he came for the next session, he didn't have his hoodie on. He was talking, he was more animated. So that's really how I got into this field. I do have a great interest in mental health. I believe that is, I don't want to say the next big thing, that doesn't sound right, but it's the next area of healthcare that we're really going to have to start focusing on, because there's so much need out there and it's just not being met, or we're throwing medication at it and not treating we're treating the symptoms and not the cause. And so I just was fascinated by it and decided that I wanted to get involved in this. I wanted to help people. This is not just for veterans. It helps a myriad of things like you mentioned, and we'll talk about later as well. But I'm just quite honored and humbled to be on this journey with people, trying to help them come back to their regular state of mental health, or where they want to be, to improve their quality of life. That's the biggest thing, is the quality of life. And because it impacts not only them, but their family members and everybody around them. So that's really kind of how I got into it. Just really it really was, I was led on a path. I can see how everything I've done throughout my career has led me to where I am now. And I'm currently back in school. I'm becoming a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I should finish next summer. And that will just help me on this journey with Dave, getting our business going and helping as many people as we can.
Cool. I think we had a couple blips. We froze up just a second and then we got you back. But
Dave, is it your turn?
All good. Yeah, we'll move to Dave. Like I said, you blipped out just a couple times. No worries. I think we got the majority of it. So, Dave, go ahead and tell the listeners your story, your background. Obviously, maybe it's very similar to how Lisa got involved with it. So, kind of fill us in. Tell us a little bit about you, and we'll go from there.
So I am a retired Marine. I retired from the Marine Corps in 1993 as a gunnery sergeant. I was a communications intelligence specialist for my entire 20 years in the Corps. So I didn't do anything in the Marine Corps to cause me any mental health issues. That was issues that happened before and after the Corps. But kind of rocking along in my life. At one point, I became, well, in 2009, in July of 2009, I started serving as the veteran service officer in Cherokee County, Texas. That's where I live. So I was the county service officer. And so that was really how I came into dealing with or working with vets and really got interested in how can I help these guys. Well, my job for 9.5 years was trying to take care of them in dealing with the VA. I was their advocate between them and the VA with helping them apply for and get their benefits and whatnot. And one of the things that I had to learn about, because I knew literally nothing about PTSD other than, I knew it existed and it had a name, but I had no idea what it was really all about. And so it probably took me a couple of years of studying and going to different classes that I could find where they were talking about what PTSD was and what kind of issues guys that were dealing with PTSD had. And so it was one of those things that really got my interest. But getting close to the end of my 9.5 years as the veteran service officer, I started my own decline mentally. And again, not because of the PTSD, but because of all the concussions I had. I know probably, half a dozen or more as a kid growing up, several of those, at least 3 of them where I lost consciousness, maybe more. And then as a martial artist and 20 years of fighting in martial arts, I've had, obviously more concussions. And so my ability to do my job has gotten to the point where I couldn't. I had very little, if any, memory left. People that I had known for, decades, I had trouble coming up with their names, if I was even able to come up with their name at all. Words I'd known all of my life, I had trouble coming up with. Even if I knew what it was I was trying to say and I could go and Google it, look it up, find the word, then as soon as I turned around and I was no longer looking at the word, I lost it again. So very depressing, very hard to deal with on my part for a good while on that. But right after I retired, a friend of mine sent me a text, and it had a picture of a flyer on it of a guy that was doing a seminar locally here in East Texas. And so I thought, what the heck? I got nothing else going on. I'm sitting around the house all day doing nothing because I wasn't working anymore. So I went to the seminar, and none of it really talked to me. In fact, I sat there with my arms crossed and my legs crossed during probably about 95% of the presentation. And then what got my attention was close to the end of it. They talked about a study that they did with a group of Marines, and it was a small group. It's about 6 or 7 Marines, and the VA Medical Center and the University of California in San Diego. And so what they had done, they had gotten these Marines that all had PTSD and TBI, and they took them over to the school, to UC San Diego, and they did these scans on them. One of them was a MEG. I think it's a megaloencephalogram. Basically, it maps the brain. It's a great big machine. It's probably only a half a dozen of them in the United States, maybe a couple more. But they map the brain, and then they did 3D MRI images of the brain. And so what they could see in the brain was they could see the hot spots where there was anxiety, depression, anger, all these types of issues that we deal with, that have, guys deal with where they have PTSD or TBI, and they're all lighting up hot. And so after they did the scans, they took the guys, they did the treatments on them, and then they took them back and did the scans again. Well, they could see in the scans where all the hot spots were starting to cool down. So that gave them image-based evidence showing that they can bring the levels of anxiety and depression and anger, all those things, they can bring those levels down for the guys and make it to where they can actually function, in life and society. And so that kind of got me to thinking about it. Well, maybe if they could help those guys, maybe they can help me. And so after it was all over and done with, I went up to the guys and I said, okay, here's my deal. And I explained to them, all the concussions I had, and they basically just said, yeah, we can help. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna think about it for a little bit and I'll get back with y'all. Well, I went home, I thought about it for a couple hours. I said, you know what, I got nothing to lose. I've got nowhere else to go. So I went ahead and started going and getting the sessions or the treatments for myself. And they worked. And I was shocked. For the first time in, I don't even know how many years, I slept more than 2 or 3 hours a night. That was, to me, that was pretty amazing because I hadn't slept in so many years, even to the point of not even getting a good enough sleep to go into REM sleep. I wasn't doing that. So I hadn't had any dreams in years. All of a sudden now, I'm sleeping all night and I'm having dreams and I'm like, this is kind of neat. I was waking up more rested, and while the memory thing hadn't all come back yet, some things were starting to happen to show me that there were some changes going on. So I guess kind of to make the long story short, I got significant improvement from it. I enjoyed what was going on with me and the help that it gave me. So I started talking to the guy that did the treatments on me. I started asking him about the possibility of me buying the equipment so that I could go out and help other people, in particular vets. Again, that had been my job for 9.5 years. And I really missed working with vets and being able to help them. So I bought the equipment, did some training with the guy that I was working with there he helped me buy the equipment. I did some training with him. And so I started going out and, doing different types of presentations myself, getting vets and working with them. I did some work with Lisa on a couple of the vets that she had. It almost never ceases to amaze me to see the guys that come in with depression or anxiety levels, at a 10, and they're at the point where they can't even they can't get out into society because they don't feel comfortable being around people, and they come in at that kind of a level, and then after 3 or 4 weeks, they're going out and their levels are at a 1 or a 2, and they're out looking for jobs and they're feeling like they can function in society again. They're beginning to take care of their own personal business. Impulsivity a lot of times is a real bad thing for PTSD vets. They get their paycheck and then or their disability, and then within a day or two they've spent it all. One of the guys that I worked with Lisa, after 5 or 6 weeks, he came in and he had started going to financial management classes. He was trying to go back and relearn now how to take care of his own finances, since he hadn't in so many years. He came in one day, told us that he had applied for a job. I think that was the first time he had been able to do anything like that in over 10 years. So I've gotten to see some pretty neat results in what we've done and what this equipment, if you will, can do for folks.
Wow. I'd like to bring Lisa back in. We're fixing to go to our short break. But before we end this episode, Lisa, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah, I turned my video off too, which was which was a gift to you guys. But I turned off my video and I saw that you dropped the video. So that's just to make things, work a little smoother. I know for whatever reason, Tuesday night on Zoom is busy. So, I just wanted to bring you in and ask you just one or two questions before we go to our break. Did you experience similar things or similar effects from your service in the military? And did you have you experienced this treatment yourself personally?
I was never deployed. I did not experience any of the symptoms or the PTSD that a lot of our veterans have, or the depression, anxiety, that type of thing. So it's not related to my service. I have received sessions, Dave and I. It's kind of nice. We work on each other. One of the things that I've noticed, and we can talk about in the next session, is since I'm in school, I actually use it when I have a lot of intense studying I have to do, because it really helps me focus. I have also had some issues with depression, and I find that it has helped with my mood significantly. So yes, I've seen it work on others. I've seen it work on me. I've seen it work in Dave. And unless I was sure this worked, I wouldn't be doing it. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you both have personally experienced it, and I myself, I find it really intriguing, and the way that you both explained it as far as the hot spots, and the hot spots in the brain, and where this can actually target those hot spots and kind of make the brain refire or reboot, I guess, and kind of move stuff around. So I want to get into some more details about, what is a typical session, and how does it, how do you go about doing the process? The cost, is it covered by insurance, things of that nature. And we can get into that in the second segment. So we've been talking with Lisa Herterich and Dave Thomason, and they are with Anam Cara Wellness. And all this information is going to be in the show notes about their company, and you'll be able to reach out to them. Their contact information will be in the show notes, as well as the website. So we're going to have that in the show notes for you. So don't worry, you don't got to write anything down. Just bear with me, hang in there with me, Lisa and Dave. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, let's get into kind of meat and potatoes and get into the nitty gritty on exactly what is the session and the microcurrent neurofeedback. How does it take place, and what do you do when you're conducting a session with a client? So stay with me, and we'll be right back after a short break. Welcome our new sponsor, Scars and Stripes Coffee Company. They empower veterans to build their own business using their e-commerce platform. When you purchase from Scars and Stripes Coffee, you are buying from a veteran, and your purchase directly impacts the men and women who have served our country. Do more than say, thank you for your service. Order today and empower a veteran. Use vet code Brad Richard at scarsandstripescoffee.com. That's scarsandstripescoffee.com. Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. They have great creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, and it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you'll need to make a podcast in one place. Check them out and download the free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm to get started. Okay, we are back with part 2 of episode 58. Episode 58, we are talking with Lisa Herterich and Dave Thomason, and we have been talking about microcurrent neurofeedback. and they're part of our company, Anam Cara Wellness, and they are talking about this particular treatment for a whole variety of different conditions that this treatment can be very helpful with. So welcome back, Dave and Lisa. And we are going to get rolling here. Lisa, if you want to start off with maybe some of the details about what is when someone does a session and goes through the software, and you guys are running a session and a treatment with a client, what can they expect? In other words, how does it work? If you could kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Well, microcurrent neurofeedback is different than traditional neurofeedback in that regular neurofeedback is very active. Now, in both technologies, you put electrodes at different, what we call site pairs on the skull. But regular neurofeedback is active. Microcurrent neurofeedback is passive. In other words, you just sit there and you feel absolutely nothing. So when you come in for your first initial session, we do an intake. We ask a lot of information. We assess the reactivity of your nervous system based on several questions that we'll ask. That helps us determine where we need to start with your session. After that, after we take some information down, and this is just the first session, we will prep the sites on the skull, on the head, we clean it and we put some little paste on there in little places, and then we put the little electrodes on there. And I say electrodes, and some people say, when are you going to zap me? And that's not what we're doing. We're not zapping you at all. The microcurrent is 3 picowatts of energy, which is about 1/1,000,000th of the amount of energy that you get from your cell phone when you put it up to your head. So it's considered nano energy almost. So we're not zapping you, but we do put those on your heads and on your head, and then we set. There's different protocols. And what the protocols are, the amount of energy doesn't change that we give, but it's the frequency, the amplitude that changes, the pulses and the bursts of how the energy is delivered based on different protocols. And an initial session with the intake and everything may last 45 minutes to an hour. Subsequent sessions oftentimes are 30 minutes or less, and most of that is not even giving the energy. A lot of it we reevaluate when you come in for your subsequent sessions. Typically, based on research and what we've seen, most people will need on average 10 to 20 sessions. Some people will need less, some people will need more. It just depends on the complexity of what's going on and the history. And so this is not an endless treatment. You get a finite amount of sessions. We're reaching for what we call sustainability. A lot of people will find some relief from some of their symptoms as soon as the first, second, third session, or they may not. When we start getting some response, when we start getting some relief, we keep going because these sessions they're cumulative. They build on each other. So we know that the brain is electrical and it's chemical. That's how it works. So we have electrical pathways that stimulate our neurons to release neurotransmitters. And sometimes in the brain, those pathways kind of go astray. It can be from a myriad of things. It can be from chronic depression or anxiety or stress, PTSD, abuse, ADHD. Many, many things can cause our pathways to kind of go astray a little bit. And then when they are exposed to that for a long period of time, they stay stuck in that pathway. And so what the microcurrent does, it delivers the current to help, just like you said, kind of reboot the brain, just like when your computer goes wonky, you turn it off. and you turn it back on again to reboot it. So when we deliver the current, it allows the brain to reconnect to the correct pathways. So it's not endless. Some people want, a little what they call tune up every now and then, but some people get exactly where they want to be, and then we don't see them again. And we're happy for that. That's really what we're searching for. And the thing I want to emphasize with iAssist is we are treating the cause of the problem, not just the symptoms. So we're trying to fix the root cause of what is causing all these feelings and emotions and physical sensations and everything else that is impacting that person's life. So we're trying to actually reboot the brain so that it's back on the pathway that it was meant to be on. So that's typically what a session is like. So anywhere from half an hour to an hour, depending on what's going on.
Okay. Now, when a client comes to you and before you start a session, do they have to, or do you have to identify what conditions they may have? Or is that something that is kind of determined later? You know what I'm saying? Do they need to come with you with a list of, I'd like to address these things?
Well, they need to know what is bothersome to them and why they're seeking a session or sessions. Do we need a medical diagnosis? Absolutely not. Some people have a medical diagnosis. I am seeing someone right now who has a lot of problems with panic. And the panic is based on events from her past. And I've been seeing her, and in 4 sessions, her panic is just about gone. And so typically what we'll do at the first meeting is we will ask the client, what are the top 3 things that you want to work on? So it doesn't have to be a formal diagnosis. Some of them may be, I can't concentrate anymore. My focus is terrible, or I feel sad all the time, or I have so much anxiety every time I do such and such. So it's just a wide range. So we choose three things initially that we try to focus on, and then we kind of go from there.
Okay. Now, I know Dave is with us as well. Dave, do you now you conduct your sessions at Camp V?
We both do.
You both do? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in Tyler, Texas.
Yeah.
Now, as far as listeners that reach out to either one of you, or they go to the website, what if they're outside of the state of Texas, which a lot of my listeners are going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Where would they go to connect with a provider?
With a provider.
Yeah.
So they can go to the iAssist main website. And I always tell folks to Google IASIS space MCN. And the reason I tell them that is I don't type very well. So me trying to type in microcurrent neurofeedback.com is a little bit of a pain. So I just tell them to Google iAssist MCN for microcurrent neurofeedback. And that'll take people to the main website, and they can look on the main website, and there's a lot of information there. They've got a lot of documentaries from folks that tell about how it's helped them. But there's a place there to find a provider, and all they need to enter there is probably their city or state or their zip code. And then that way they can find a local provider.
Well, and this is also spread internationally as well. And so there are providers in other countries.
Excellent. We will get that link in. I want the link in the show notes for your website, and then we'll get the other link in that David just referred to, and put that in there for anybody outside of the Tyler, Texas area, so they can reach out. As far as I know that both of you, you do your sessions at Camp V, which is a great resource for veterans in Tyler, Texas, and in East Texas. Tell me a little bit about, and this question is for David. In the last, 3 sessions, what have you experienced? What have you seen occur with your clients or with your veterans when you've done sessions?
In the last 3 sessions that I've done?
Yes.
Um,
Has anything stood out? To you?
There are some that have stood out. I've got one guy that I'm working with. He was having anger issues where his anger management was really, really bad. And everybody around Camp B, saw it and knew it. And they, even after his first session, people saw the difference in him. And now even he's going through some pretty tough times with some personal problems and everything in his life, but he's remaining pretty calm and level-headed through the whole thing. And people that know him and people that see him on a daily basis are just like, how are you doing that? How are you staying so calm and relaxed through all of this? And he just tells them, I went and I go through these sessions with the ISIS, and that's what it does for him. It helps him, maintain that composure and not get so angry or upset or mad about things. I've got another lady that I saw her today. Her husband had very, very, very severe PTSD, depression, anxiety, all kinds of things going on. He shot her twice, shot their child, and then committed suicide. She survived. She recently had surgery to remove a bullet from her head.
Wow.
Yeah. And, that's one of those, I just sit there and I'm just like in awe of what we've been able to do for her in just a really short period of time. Obviously sleep is an important part of that. We've been helped. She's sleeping better. Her anxiety is down. Her depression is down. We've still got some issues that we've got to that we'll have to work on, but there'll be things that'll take a little bit more time. But just seeing how she's improving and changing, it's kind of motivating for me. You run into those kinds of things, and it really tells you why you're doing this and what you're accomplishing for folks. It's just in your face. This is what you're doing for folks. Mm-hmm. And really makes you feel good. I guess a third example, I've got, I also, Lisa treats people in Longview, and I treat people in Jacksonville. I have office in Jacksonville. Lisa also has one in Longview. But I've got a couple of vets in Jacksonville that they just decided kind of on a whim that they wanted to try it out. And both of them were just amazed at again, the level of sleep, the lower levels of depression and anxiety. And for one of the guys, his biggest issue is his focus now. He would be, they'd be sitting around with a group of guys and they'd be talking about something, and all of a sudden midstream, he just changes the subject to something totally off the wall. But that was his norm, and he wouldn't necessarily realize it until somebody, brought it to his attention, and everybody got a good laugh out of it. And now that he's becoming more able to focus and concentrate and stay on task, so to speak, a lot of people are going, "You're not as much fun anymore, man."
Wow.
So I mean, there's some things that are very, very motivating. And then there's some things like that that are, more on the humorous side. So it kind of
Right.
covers the gamut.
Yeah, it sounds like it. We're gonna wrap up. We're almost done with our second segment, but I had a couple more questions. One question for you, Lisa. Do you think, when it comes to veterans specifically, do you think family members would benefit from this type of treatment, when it comes to their anxiety and their emotions or their confusion about maybe behavior or actions?
Oh, absolutely. I think it
Okay.
could help because, when service members, we know when they have PTSD or other issues related potentially to their service, that it affects the entire family. And so if anxiety, depression, all those things are very common in family members of service members or veterans that are affected, and absolutely it could help them. And I do want to, I know we're coming to a close. I did want to just emphasize one thing with IASIS. Everything we're talking, Dave and I believe in it wholeheartedly, but it's not a miracle cure. I just want to kind of throw that out there. It has been shown to be effective in about 84% of cases, which is a higher rate than conventional medicine. So it is very effective, but it requires you to stick with it. So it's not a one and done. You come, you have multiple sessions until we get you to the point where you're doing so much better and you don't need us anymore, or we get to the point where I'm not sure this is going to work for you. I have had one or two people that's happened with, but by far the majority have benefited greatly from the microcurrent neurofeedback. So I just kind of wanted to throw that in there because we talk it up so much, and it is fantastic, but just it's not magic, and it does take persistence, and you have to stick with it.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Just a couple last things, and then, like I said, we're right down to the end here. When it comes to insurance, now, is this treatment, is it covered by major insurances, or will the Veterans Administration help with the cost of the treatments?
We do not take insurance, excuse me, but some insurance companies do cover it under a biofeedback type of designation. So we really leave that up to the individual client to determine if their insurance will take it. We do know that some of the major insurance companies do take, we'll take a claim that's submitted, but we have the client do that themselves. As far as veterans are concerned, the VA, it's very complicated with them. Dave, you can jump in here as well. Dave and I have a policy. We don't turn away veterans if they cannot pay. We have a system in place that will help them with that if they need it. So that's kind of how the payment system works. Dave, can you talk about the?
Yeah, the VA will cover it if you can get into their community care program. But it's almost like the rules to the community care program change on a whim. It's difficult to get in, but once you get in, then it's fine. The big issue there is most of the providers cannot afford to take what the VA pays, because they've got offices and they've got staff and they've got a lot of bills that they've got to pay. And what the VA tends to reimburse is pretty minuscule. So, compared to what most people charge, I'm wanting to say they paid somewhere around $50 or so for a session that most people either charge $100 or $150 for. So a lot of the insurance companies are kind of along that same line. They will reimburse some, but in general, a lot of the practitioners won't take insurance because it does not reimburse them enough. So just kind of like what Lisa was saying, we can give them the information, they can file on it and, get reimbursed by their insurance company for whatever they'll pay.
Okay, great. If either you, David, or Lisa, if one of you can email me the link for the national website where they can find a provider wherever they're at in the country, if you could send me that link so I can include it in the show notes, that would be fantastic. I do have your website, Anam Cara Wellness, and that website will be in the show notes, but I want to make sure that we get that link that they can go to search for a provider in their state or in their area of the country. So that would be great. Just email it to me.
Okay.
Yeah, great stuff. My one last question, and you guys can, toss a quarter and see who answers it. Right now, the younger generation, and I know that, we're all about vets. All three of us are vets. The Men on a Mission podcast is all about vets and their families. But something that popped into my head, and I want to just kind of cover it, and then we're going to be done. We'll wrap it up for tonight. Is there an age limit, or is there, in other words, teenagers?
Yeah, there's really not an age limit, and I know where you're coming from or going to on that one.
Okay.
My youngest client that I have worked with, probably 3 or 4. They're tough because they don't sit still for very long. One of the things that we've kind of noticed is I'll get a little stand, and the mom or dad can kind of put their phone up and put a cartoon on, and that'll kind of get their attention. And so while they're focusing on the cartoon, then we can focus on the sessions or the treatments. But especially for kids that young, the sessions are usually pretty quick. They're pretty short, shorter than they are for adults, for sure.
Okay. But this type of software or this process, it can be used with children or teenagers.
Absolutely.
I know right now, along with our veterans, the teenage group out there in America, a lot of them are struggling, and typical therapy or counseling or whatever isn't really doing the trick. So this maybe, something that would be available to them and be very
absolutely
useful.
And I think especially with the COVID pandemic that we've had, the depression, anxiety that's resulting from that, our healthcare workers that are burned out, and I think some are going to have PTSD from this. Young children, this has been proven to work with some aspects of autism, ADHD. So yeah, definitely, this is perfectly safe for children and teenagers.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up, and I really appreciate both of you bearing with me in some of our technical glitches, but we got through it. And I want to thank Lisa Herterich and Dave Thomason, and they have been talking about microcurrent neurofeedback, and the name of the company is Anam Cara Wellness, and that'll be in the show notes, and you can look up and search for a service provider of the microcurrent neurofeedback treatment in your area by clicking on the other link that'll be in the show notes as well. So thank you both. It's great information. I understand it's not a cure-all, but it is definitely helping people move to that next step and feel a little more normal and a little more in control of their lives. And that's really what we're here for. That's what the podcast is all about. So thank you both for being on.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Brad.
You're very welcome. And once again, thanks for your patience. I'm going to end like I always do. I'll end the Men on a Mission podcast the same way. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode. This is episode 58. So until next time, remember to take care of your little me, love them, protect them, and they need you more than you can imagine. So love yourself. And until next time, bye for now.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. And it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cages loud and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to